Use stakes and string line to set up the placement for your fence. Mark where you will put your foundations exactly 9 feet apart. Where marked, dig holes using a shovel, post hole digger, or auger. Use a hand dirt compactor to prepare the soil for your concrete foundations. Holes should be at least 1 foot wide and 3 feet deep. If you do not have a hand dirt compactor, you may use a wooden post. At this time, you may choose to place the rebar adjacent to each hole, preparing for the pouring of the concrete foundation. For optimal results, use an automatic leveling laser and grade to level your string line. You may also use a line level or 4-foot level on short sections. With the separation between your stakes at the maximum of 50 feet, identify level and adjust the string line accordingly. When on a slope, place your pins closer together. Identify level on each pin and adjust the string line accordingly. On this particular job, RhinoRock employees use an automatic leveling laser and grade to find level on a sloped terrain. After finding level on the first stake, the employee walks to the next and adjusts the string line accordingly. It is important to make sure to pull the slack in the line. For preparing the next separation of stakes, the employees adjust the string line and reset the laser receiver on the grade. At the next stake, again the employees adjust the string line, making sure to pull the slack. This process is then repeated for a continual slope. Using a metal trowel, finish off the top of each concrete foundation. Make sure that they are greater or equal to 16 inches in diameter. Using a tape measure, refer to the string line and find level between each concrete foundation. When temperatures are high, make sure to have adequate manpower and retarder in your concrete so that the concrete will not dry too quickly. 2 men on a hot day can usually do 25 to 30 footings per truck. Shown here is a RhinoRock employee referring to the level string line and using a tape measure and trowel sets the elevation of the concrete foundation. A predetermined length is measured down from the level string line. It is important to be accurate within 1/8 of an inch. The base of the elevation must be at least 16 inches in diameter. After doing 4 to 5 footings, place your rebar 9 feet apart. Center the rebar into the concrete footing, using the string line as a reference. Be sure to move the rebar up and down to help the concrete set in. Each rebar should project out of the concrete by 3 feet. It is critical when placing the rebar to not exceed 9 feet. However, you may place them 2 inches under. On a sloped elevation, it is necessary to make steps in your footings. Using a trowel, make the step accordingly. Be sure that each step qualifies within 1/8 of an inch of the predetermined measurement. You may choose to mark down the measurement between each footing, as shown here. Again, it is important to have adequate manpower and retarder in your concrete for high temperature days. Between each step, measurements should be equal. It is important to use extreme caution when unloading the materials off the truck. Make sure that forklift tines do not damage the materials, and that when moving the materials, they are transferred low to the ground. If needed, clear the debris or dirt away from the foundations. Cut number 10 stranded electrical wire into 12-inch segments. Tie the wire securely on the middle lower tab of one side of the column. Here is an optional way to attach the wire to one side of the column. Using a 1/4-inch masonry bit, drill a hole in the imprint of the stone. If you reach rebar, slightly move the drill around. If possible, move a pallet of panels near your footings. Using proper lifting techniques, lift a panel that weighs approximately 250 pounds into position. After putting the panel into position, be sure to center the panel between the rebar. It is critical that at least one worker holds the panel in an upright position. Using a 4-foot level, align each panel together, making a straight line. Then align the 4-foot level with the bottom edge of the border of the panel. In a particular case, you may use a 1/4-inch plastic shim to raise up part of the panel so that it is level. Using a shovel, lift up the panel and place the shim underneath the edge. Again, align the panel and recheck the level. Prior to setting up your column, make sure that the panel is plumb. With the number 10 stranded electrical wire in place and each metal brick tie bent out perpendicular to the column, pick up the column and place it onto the footing. Each side of the column should sit flat against the panels. Tap the side of the column with your foot to make sure that it sits centered with the panels. The worker should then secure the side of the column and the panel. The other worker will bend the bottom and top metal ties around the rebar. Using proper lifting techniques, the worker will then raise the panel and bend the metal ties. Each tie should protrude into the void by 2 inches. Raise the side of the column onto the footing. Place the stranded electrical wire through the hole. Pull on the wire and center the side of the column with the panels. With both sides of the column directly across from each other, secure the column with a slide bar clamp. Check for an equal distance on each side of the column. Using tie-down ratchets, ratchet the cable until snug. Level the side of the panel again to make sure that the panel is plumb. Each panel should be perfectly aligned with the rebar. When bracing the fence, one worker should hold a 4-foot level against the fence. The other worker should place a 2x4 underneath the stone imprint and drive a wooden stake into the ground. Make sure that the fence is plumb. Repeat the bracing for the other side of the column. Bracing should occur at every other column. However, during windy conditions, RhinoRock suggests bracing every column. When the elevation of 2 panels is different, fillers can be placed to give an aesthetic look. Measure the vertical length of the gap and mark it on the filler provided by RhinoRock. Cut the filler using a 14-inch diamond blade saw, and be sure to use the proper safety equipment, such as glasses, ear protection, and a mask. Grout your column up to the line of the stone indent shown here. Insert the foam provided by RhinoRock, leaving 6 inches below the top of the panel. Bend down the metal brick tie and fill in the rest with the concrete. Then top the column off with the cap. By doing the slump test, you can identify if your concrete or grout is too wet or too dry. If too wet, it will apply too much pressure to the column and make gaps. If too dry, it will not form a good compacted material with the footing. The type of concrete used is a bag mix concrete with a minimum of 4,000 psi. Do not use a post mix or a ready mix truck to grout your columns. The concrete should slump about half the height of the cup. Grout each column by using a 5-gallon bucket. After grouting the column up to the second line from the top of the stone indent, use rebar to shift around the concrete in the bottom of the column so that it is compact. Insert the foam and leave 6 inches from the top of the panel. Fill in the rest of the column with concrete, shaping the top of the column. Create a mound of concrete on top of the column and place your cap accordingly. Bend the metal brick tie out so it protrudes into the concrete. Place the cap onto the concrete and shift around the cap so that the concrete is compressed. Make sure the cap is aligned with each column side. Make sure the cap is centered and looks aligned. Using a wooden stake, flatten out the concrete. Typically after 24 hours, the clamps, ratchets, and braces can be removed. In cold temperature, they should be left until the concrete reaches at least 50% strength. Use pliers to cut the stranded wire as close as possible to the concrete.